What's cracking, big dose? Welcome, Bike, to the channel. Welcome, Bike, to Bunkbed Breakdowns. If you are watching on the Big Dogs channel, make sure you are subscribed to the Bunkbed Breakdowns YouTube channel, as well as their podcast if you want the audio feed of this. This is the Dynasty show that we are putting out weekly on the Big Dogs channel. Over the next month or so, for the month of August, we will be doing some redraft-focused content. So I know a lot of y'all have your season-long drafts coming up. We've been talking Dynasty for like 5 or 6 months now. But it's almost draft season for this year. So we want to make sure we are injecting you with some redraft stuff. Today, we're doing some hot takes, some bold predictions, but not our bold predictions. We gathered, 12 or 15 different bold predictions from the Discord channel. And we're going to go through them. Some of our favorite ones. We are going to scale it 1 to 10. 1 being that we don't even think they're hot takes. We don't think they're bold predictions. We agree with them. 10 being that they're just fucking outrageous, and we probably shouldn't have included them to begin with. But we're gonna pick a number 1 to 10 each of us, and we're kind of debate the hot takes, the bold predictions that we have on the list today. Make sure that you drop any bold predictions you got for the 2020 fantasy season. I believe most of these bold predictions are, they're really not going to go too much further than the 2020 season, but I guess they kind of, depend on what you want to do Dynasty with what we talk about here analysis-wise. Regardless, y'all get the point. We are back. We are Bike. Noah is no longer bright red. He has started to simmer down. The tan is settling in. How are we doing, boys?
Doing all right. My nose is peeling like crazy, so I try to clean it up before we recorded. Hopefully my camera isn't good enough quality to capture that.
Yeah, man, it's lit out here. Had a good morning. Now I'm ready to just, dish out some big facts, man, or some bold facts, I guess.
Hell yeah, let's talk that talk. Hit the intro, baby.
All right. First up from user Daniel. I don't know if this is Danny boy, but if it is, shout out to him.
It can't be because it's not Cowboys related.
Yeah, that's true.
No way.
Josh Allen is seen as the next Trubisky and is drafted outside of the top 20 Dynasty QBs in 2021. To me, this is a fact. It's not even a bold prediction. What about you guys?
I'm going to give this a rating of 6.5. I think that while Josh Allen, a lot of the traits and the characteristics are there to add up for him being the next Trubisky, just in terms of throwing accuracy, the situations that them two are in were in like polar opposites. Because Trubisky, he brought less to the table than whatever they put around him, but what they put around him was also the table was foodless. So when you look at Josh Allen, they've been building around him for a while now. They have an underrated offensive line. They got Stephon Diggs. They have John Brown. They've got a lot of young weapons that I think they're building around. So when I look at fantasy quarterbacks, I think most of them are going to be as good as the surrounding talent around them. I think it gives them enough floor when you have weapons around you because you start to game plan around those weapons rather than putting the team on the quarterback's bike side and letting him run with it. But when you have the weapons like Stephon Diggs, you can write up a lot of plays. You can have the ground heavy game. So I don't see anyone failing as spectacularly as Trubisky did. I think it's probably too bold. I don't think he'll finish outside of the top 20 quarterbacks or be drafted outside. He might take a step back if he's really wildly inaccurate this year, then people will continue to project that into the future and project his downfall to come a lot quicker than we expected. But I think he'll be fine running wise. I think he'll still be drafted maybe inside like the top 12 or 15 as opposed to like top 7 or 8 this year. But I don't think the fall off will be that high.
Yeah, I'm right there with Nick, and a lot of people are comparing him to like a Blake Bortles type. The main difference I would say is it took Blake Bortles like 3 to 4 years to make it to the playoffs, and that was in 2017 when he was carried by that like historically great defense. Josh Allen does have a good defense, but it only took him 2 years to go into the playoffs. I believe they were like 10-6, and now as Nick said, like you see them completely building around him, bringing in Stephon Diggs, upgrading that offensive line, and he was drafted like 7th overall, and he was not expected to be a day one starter. He was more of a project, and the fact that from year 1 to year 2, he's taken as big of a leap as he has, although he hasn't been like fantastic accuracy-wise. Like his touchdown percentage is up, his interception percentage is down, his completion is up, and just having weapons around him, I think like even adding a Zach Moss, somebody who can like maybe add a little longevity, taking away those goal line carries from him inside the 5-yard line where we saw like a Patrick Mahomes get hurt last year. I think that he has enough longevity in this league to be taken well within the top 20 dynasty quarterbacks because like even a guy like Jameis Winston this past season, like we knew he didn't have the longest leash, right? Because he's a dumbass quarterback, even though he's good for fantasy. And because of that alone, he was picked well within the top 20 dynasty quarterbacks heading into 2019. He obviously lost his job. So I still think people will have enough faith in Josh Allen to pick him, like as Nick said, top 12, top 15 quarterback, even if he does have a down season with Stephon Diggs in his first year in Buffalo. So I'd rate this around a 7 or 8, because I wouldn't rate it a 10 because I could kind of see it happening with a Mitchell Trubisky type. But I also think the Bears are just kind of pissed that they passed up on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Now they see this idiot like being an absolute buffoon out there every week. So I think that kind of plays into it as well.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 3 or a 4 because I think it's actually more likely to happen than not. I think the Blake Bortles comparison is actually a pretty good one. Given their situation, I think both kind of rode their defense to where they are. And, if we look at the stats, I mean, Blake Bortles is actually a better passer than Josh Allen was, which is crazy to see and crazy to say, but that's just a fact. And I think like going forward, like, is he going to be a Trubisky? Is it going to take 1 more year? Is it going to take 2 more years?
That's why I think the top 20, like outside of the top 20, if it does happen, it probably won't be next offseason. It'll be the
I could see that, but also just looking at the list of the people in the top, let me call it top 15. These are the people that I feel like could easily kind of leap him. Right now, I have him at quarterback 12. I think he's being drafted like quarterback 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
But you got like Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. You got Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones takes that next step, if Jared Goff kind of bounces back, you got Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, who I think are just criminally underrated every single year. So that's about 16 quarterbacks I could kind of see going ahead of him. Right. And then you have someone like the dark horse guys down below, but also you have like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields coming in next class. You got Trey Lance. That's like 3 quarterbacks right there. So like there isn't really that much margin of error. It sounds crazy. Like when we say like outside top 20, it makes him sound like he's like super trash, but I
think what the delta might be here is like, yeah, you have the new young quarterbacks coming in, but we also have a bunch of guys on the cusp, right? Like you have the Rodgerses, the Matt Ryans, who are like one bad year away from like floating into that quarterback 21 to 25 range, and that's where I get dicey,
Yeah, I'm not even counting them. So
okay.
I'm only counting like the young guys like Jared Goff.
I just know they're going inside the top 20 right now.
Yeah. So like, I mean, Rodgers, the only people drafting Rodgers inside the top 12 are boomers. So we don't even talk about that.
Hey, don't call Richie a boomer.
And then, like I said, you got some dark horse guys down below, but yeah, I'm saying like, I could easily see him like float into that like 15 to 18 range. And then like, if he like kind of underperforms this year, if the rushing kind of comes down, I could see him getting bumped out, but like you said, it's kind of fluid in that range, so it's tough to say. So I'm giving him I'm giving this like a 3 or 4 rating. You guys are giving it 6 or so.
I went 6.5. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna have to run through these a little more quickly, otherwise it's gonna be a 3-hour fucking Lord of the Rings featured film. All right, from prime time, Kareem Hunt becomes the RB1 in Cleveland, and they trade Chubb. This is an 11 out of 10. There is absolutely no chance the Cleveland Browns are. I mean, listen, there's like multiple parts of. I don't know which is the more ridiculous part of this statement, but Kareem Hunt becomes the RB1 in Cleveland. Chubb's probably top 2 best pure runners in the NFL. They have him on the rookie contract. They have no incentive to trade him.
Yeah, and Kareem Hunt's got 1 year left, so what are they going to do? Trade Chubb and then have to pay Kareem Hunt? Like, their front office is dumb, but I hope they're not that dumb to do that.
I think we can just move on with that, Mike.
Let's move on. I don't think
Daddy Flex God.
This one.
Daddy Flex God. Jerry Jeudy outproduces Courtland Sutton in full PPR in 2020. Mike, I thought you made a really good thread or point on Twitter the other day with Courtland Sutton. Like, if you're investing into Courtland Sutton, it's because you think he's an absolute baller and he's going to be the one. You're not investing in Courtland Sutton at this point because you think like Drew Lock is ready to take the You're like, Courtland Sutton is an elite ball commander. Like, he's going to be the one that actually carries Drew Lock and the team. And I think he's good enough to do that. And he's the only one that's good enough to do that right now in the NFL. So I see no chance that Jerry Jeudy is good enough, one, to like command the targets over Sutton, and also be the one who raises Drew Lock's game. So it's Courtland Sutton's game or it's nobody's. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I'm on board with you.
So like 8.5, 9 for me.
Yeah, I'm giving this a 9.5 just because I think Courtland Sutton is baller. He's done everything that we wanted to see someone his age and his progression and his profile do. And granted, everyone loves Jeudy and he's that dude or whatever. But I don't see Jeudy ever overtaking Courtland Sutton. I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about as long as they are both in Denver, this is going to be the Courtland Sutton show. And Jeudy may be productive and he may be good, but he's going to be the 1B to Courtland Sutton's 1A always. And I'm buying the talent of Sutton. I know, people know that I'm not a big fan of Locke. So I think, someone produces, it's going to be Sutton creating for himself and not because Locke is some sort of stud. But he could do well, and if Locke is better than we thought, even better for Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, I have this as a 9 as well. Like, as you guys said, he caught 1,100 yards and like 8 touchdowns from Brandon Allen, Joe Flacco, Drew Lock last year. Like, none of those guys should be NFL quarterbacks, including Drew Lock. So you guys in the comments that think he's good, tone it down. He kind of stinks. And Jerry Jeudy throughout his entire career has played with like really good quarterbacks at Alabama. That's not to say he's not going to be good in the NFL, because I think he is probably the most pro-ready receiver in this class. But with COVID happening and just with how dominant Courtland Sutton was last year, taking that major like year 1 to year 2 jump and people being like, oh, he can't separate. It turns out when you're 6'4" and you can jump through the roof, you don't really have to separate all that much, because you're still a dominant receiver, as he's been throughout his entire career through college and so far in the NFL. So I put this at a 9 just because I see Courtland Sutton as like a fringy wide receiver 1, because even last year in one of the most unlikely situations to produce, he did it. So I think just adding more weapons, and going back to Nick's point that he brings up all the time, like the AFC West is competing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Although they brought in more weapons, they're probably going to throw a lot more because they have to compete with one of the most high-powered, most potent offenses in the league in Kansas City in their division. So I still see him as like a top 12 to 15 guy, and Jerry Jeudy could kind of struggle at the gate.
Yeah. So we're all pretty way the fuck off board on that one.
Yeah.
All right, Bush. Ronald Jones is a top 3 round startup pick this time next year after finishing 2020 as a top 15 running back. I think, I like this bold prediction in the fact that it's not outrageous, but it's probably more unlikely to happen. There's like multiple parts to this, right? He finished as a top 15 running back. I think the path is absolutely clear. Like, he showed enough to me last year that I think he can be the RB1 in Tampa here. And being the RB1 in Tampa, that's what becomes a question, I think, is like, is that enough to get you into that top 15 range? And I've actually been buying a little bit more and more into Ronald Jones. I've been grabbing him in a lot of startup leagues this summer in like the 9th or 10th round as someone who is super young, man. He's younger than Keyshawn Vaughn. He's younger than some of these rookies and second-year backs. You have to remember, he was the youngest running back in the class that he came in with. And when you're like a 21-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, I think he was actually 20 when he came in, coming out of USC, like, you're probably not a professional. You're not ready to like take that step into the NFL. You're partying in Southern California for fucking 2-3 years, whatever you were doing. Then you step into the NFL and they expect you to be on point with your training, on point with everything. Like, that wasn't the case for Rojo. The fact, if he was 25 at this point, I would say this is, I have no faith in him dynasty wise, but the fact that he's had a couple years to understand what it takes to make it in the NFL, and he's still young, and he's still younger than a lot of these running backs, makes me hopeful. I think he showed enough last year that because this offseason is going to be so shortened, Keyshawn Vaughn won't be able to get enough momentum to take over Ronald Jones in the summer, and probably not for the first half of the season. And if Ronald Jones goes out there with the starting job, which I assume he will have in the beginning, it's his job to lose, is the way I look at it. I think he was good enough in the passing game where we didn't think he was that good last year. Like, 31 receptions, not a lot, but for 310 yards, like, that's good. 10 yards per reception, man. That shows some pretty good explosion through the air. So I'm buying into Ronald Jones. I think top 15 is absolutely realistic. Top 3 round startup pick next year, I mean, it won't be me, but I could see it happening if he comes off a strong year.
Yeah, I think the top 15 this year is around like a 5 or 6. I don't think that's too bold at all. As far as a top 3 startup round pick next year, I'd put that around like a 7 or 8, because even if Keyshawn Vaughn doesn't do too well this year, I think there will be enough hype like in next offseason where people looking up his stats in college and saying he's a better pass catcher than Ronald Jones, he's a better pass blocker, he's a better goal line back. I think that alone will move him outside like the top 15 to 18 running backs, which is kind of what you have to be a top 3 round startup pick. But I'm not as big of a fan as Ronald Jones as Nick is, but I could totally see if he goes out and he puts up like 1,000 to 1,200 yards next season, there's going to be a ton of hype about him, because coming out of college, he was that guy who was seen as like a breakaway runner, like a Jamal Charles type, even though he can't catch passes anywhere near as good as Jamal Charles. And just being part of that Bucs offense in a division that just gives up points week in and week out, like 40 burgers, 50 burgers every single week, I could definitely see him rising up draft boards in 2021.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, because
my number would have been 5.5, by the way.
Yeah, I like the prediction a little bit, but I will say I'm like struggling with the last part, like, is like him becoming a 3rd round starter pick, because again, I'm always thinking about like what that next class coming in is like, right? You got Etienne, you got Harris, Najee Harris, you got like Kenneth Gainswell, you got Chubb and all these guys that are also going to be kind of riding that hype wave in terms of value. So I could see him producing RB15 numbers this year, but I don't know if I could see him getting an RB15 like top 3 round valuation. So that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah, so we're kind of in between there. Not too hot, not too bold, but definitely not against this. So that was a good one, Bush. Nicholas, Antonio Gibson will be the RB1 for the Washington football team. Fucking too much swag with that name, man. Did you guys see the jerseys that they're doing? Is it just
they're so
nice.
Dope. They're like the best jerseys, and I love the Chargers jerseys, but I think
does it say football team on it or just Washington?
I just saw the helmets and the colors. I don't know if it says football team.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything. They're just clean, like just clean jerseys.
If they said football team, I'd get a Terry. And be the next Kamara. So Antonio Gibson will be the RB1 for the Washington football team and be the next Kamara. I mean, someone else start with this.
Yeah, the next Kamara, I'm going to put that as a 1 because I think he's better than Alvin Kamara right now. As far as the RB1 for the Washington football team, man, that's like an 8 or a 9. Not because I don't think he's good enough, but I'm not sure that he's going to get anywhere near the workload. Like, do they still have J.D. McKissick and like Peyton Barber and all those guys there? Like, they have so many running backs. They lost Chris Thompson, but I don't think it really matters. The only way I see him becoming the RB1 there is for everybody in front of him to get hurt, which is certainly realistic for Washington if that's going to happen. But I do believe in the talent. Mike and I loved him going into the draft, and the fact that he landed at Washington kind of left a bad taste in our mouth, but we kind of tried to spin zone it into a good thing. But I think overall it's an 8 or a 9. I just think he's more of like, they'll view him as more of a gadget player than a true running back in the league. And for him to become Alvin Kamara, he needs like an offensive mind like Sean Payton for that to happen. And I'm not so sure Ron Rivera can be mentioned in the same sentence as him.
Yeah. I think that next Kamara part, I'm gonna punt that as like 11 out of 10 because I think that's a bit too wild. But let me just talk about the RB1 on the Washington football team. I mean, I could see a path to him getting there, but as long as Geis is healthy, he'll probably lead the team in rushing yards. So I guess it depends on if he's talking about scoring, like maybe Gibson gets there with the passing work just because there isn't that many weapons there. But Kamara got to being Kamara, who first of all, who's a freaking unicorn. So I don't try and compare anyone to Alvin Kamara ever. But he also had like Sean Payton, like you said. But in addition to that, he has Drew Brees. He had the top offensive line in the NFL. It's just a lot of different factors that go into that, like for running back production. So as much as we love Gibson the talent, the situation is nowhere near on the same level as Alvin Kamara. But with regards to the other running backs, I think they're gonna get some of them gonna get cut, like Peyton Barber. Like I'm almost certain that like
they're about to start doing their Chicago Bears tight end fucking.
Yeah, they're gonna start cutting these,
trimming the fat real quick. Yeah,
that's what keep like 80 players now though with COVID. They might just keep all of them.
81, yeah. But no, I think that was the same with like that's normal training camp. You have whatever it is, and then you cut down to 53 by game time. I'm not really sure what the roster is fucking made of, but most of those guys won't matter once the game times actually come around. So, I mean, my take on it, I can't get behind any of the Antonio Gibson like bold prediction takes this summer because they're just like there's nothing to them. They're just straight projection. Like nothing we've heard is like Antonio Gibson's our guy. He's the one who's going to carry the rock, So it's just like you have no actual reason to saying that behind his athletic hype. So I don't see a path to it happening. The Kamara part is just fucking outrageous, irresponsible for us to even bring up on the channel. So Dally Boy, 12. Henry Ruggs pulls a full cheetah and accounts for 900-plus yards and 12 all-purpose touchdowns. I'd have to put up the meme where, like, you had me in the first half and then whatever that fucking meme was. I'm on board. Dude, I'm really getting higher on Henry Ruggs with the 900-plus yards. I think that's a bold mark, but I don't think it's unreachable. I think the 12 all-purpose touchdowns is out of control. Like, there's no reason he's going to –
I think he was talking about on your Madden franchise, so I put that at a 1.
Dude, I get that in like a game. Week 1, Henry Ruggs is so fucking good in Madden. It's unbelievable. We're in like year 3 right now. He's 99, superstar, X fucking factor. It's ridiculous. 900 yards. Okay, so I'm going to put this overall prediction at like a 9. I'm going to put the 900 yards at like a 7.5 to a 7.75 in that range. I think, I'm really excited to see how Gruden utilizes Ruggs. You don't pick a guy that early and not have a plan. Doesn't mean it's going to be a successful plan, but they're going to have a plan in mind for how they want to use him. And he's a guy that works really well by the line of scrimmage, so it's not going to be something where he needs so much time and prep to understand how to fucking take one step and then turn and get the ball and then run with it. I think that's what they're going to be using for Henry Ruggs. I don't think it's going to be it's not a player that needs to be really technically sound is the way I look at Henry Ruggs, and that's why I see he has a path to success, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this one a boot as well and just give it 11 out of 10 because any time someone compares any player to Tyreek Hill, that take is off my radar because I just don't draw comparisons to unicorns, and Tyreek Hill is a unicorn. I think I saw a tweet. I think
too many unicorns, Mike. We're at the point where we have a lot of unicorns now.
Yeah, well, people gotta stop talking about these unicorns, man, because that's all I see. Because I think someone said on Twitter, they said Tyreek Hill is like the modern day like Randy Moss, and that's really how I kind of see it. He's like one of one. He's one of one in terms of like talent and ability. He's also one of one in terms of like situation. The fact that he's tied to Andy
Is there
Reid.
a player? Let me ask you this: if you put like the 12 best players on the field together, that was really ignorant. The 11 best players on the field together, the 11 best players on the field together, and Tyreek Hill is one of them. Is there any player in the NFL that a defensive coordinator game plans around besides Tyreek Hill?
No,
he is like the game plan for every
this guy
team,
is
right?
this guy breaks your defense.
Yeah, he like is the that should be his fucking nickname, the game plan, because
And I don't think it matters anyway. He just breaks for any defense he goes up against.
it doesn't matter. I don't just thought that popped in my
So that's
head.
why I have this as a too fire of a take for me when he draw the comparison to Cheetah. I mean, the 12 all-purpose touchdowns is just absolutely insane on top of 900 yards as well. But yeah, I'm gonna give this 11 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know how he came up with these projections like 900 yards and then 12 touchdowns somehow. I don't understand that. I think the 900 is attainable because it's like a Deebo Samuel type of thing. He could have like 800 receiving yards, 100 rushing yards, or like 750 and 250 and 150. I think that's pretty easily attainable because as we talked about before, the AFC West, you got to be pretty high powered nowadays. And if that just means throwing him like 5 slants a game and him taking 1 to the house every other week, he's going to get to 900 yards pretty easily. He is very explosive, and for as much as we don't like his college profile because objectively it isn't good, I don't think he's a bad football player, and he definitely has that game-breaking speed that we saw at Alabama. So the 900 yards, I don't think he ever reached that at any year in Alabama. So that might be a little bit bold, but I'll give that part like a 7 and the rest of it like a 45.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Scott's bold take.
Yeah.
Well, we got bike to bike Dobbins bold takes. We'll start with the MVB 1987. Dobbins takes the Baltimore backfield by week 4, and Ingram is a complimentary piece. I'll put this at like a 2 because it's not something where you're like J.K. Dobbins finishes as a top 5 running back or anything like that. This is like the trajectory for most talented running backs. It takes a little while, it takes a month or two for the team to get comfortable giving them the rock enough to where they make whoever the veteran is in front of them the complimentary piece. So I would say this isn't a hot take whatsoever. I would almost say this is what I would safely project to happen there. Maybe it's a split, but if Dobbins really balls out, breaks like 1 or 2 long runs in the first month of the season, I don't see how they keep him off the field for Ingram as a complimentary piece.
Yeah, I would put it at like a 4 or 5 just because I think by week 4, they're too good of a team to like have to really change too much up. So if Mark Ingram is working and J.K. Dobbins being like a complimentary piece gets them to a 4-0 record by that point, even if he is like really dominant, I don't see them changing up too much. But I could definitely see it because I think at this point in Mark Ingram's career, I think J.K. Dobbins is the far better runner.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 6 just because I think the week 4 is pretty aggressive.
It's early,
But I mean, by half season, like, Miles Sanders-esque type of ascension, I could totally see that happening. But it's a bold take. I like it because I have some Dobbins. I have him in the filet league, so I'm happy to hear that. But, I think just the week 4 is a little bit early for me.
All right, Scott also wants to ride the Dobbins train. He said Dobbins will be first-round startup pick 2021. I know he wants to know the answer to this because he just keeps investing in Dobbins and DeAndre Swift everywhere. He said ahead of Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Ezekiel Elliott, and then he makes sure to tag at FB God, which is why I was laughing before because he never drops a question or a statement without just throwing someone random at the end of it. So FB God, I mean, he fucking called you out to the
I'd give that like a 15.
Answer the fucking man.
I'm giving it a 15 because I'm not going to let Scott win this one. I'm not trading for J.K. Dobbins. I don't believe in the talent. The guy low-key stinks, despite what I just said. Guy, if you send me an offer for J.K. Dobbins, I'm just not even going to decline it. It's going to sit there for however long it takes to be declined.
Hold on. I'm confused here because I don't know the context behind what Scott's offering you.
He's not offering me anything yet. He just wants to watch this episode and see what I'll say. So I'm not going to give him that power.
Okay. So will he be a first round? Mike, you go ahead and answer. And I'll read
Yeah, look, I think the first round starter pick 2021 isn't that bold. I think that's probably like a 3 or a 4. I mean, Jonathan Taylor and CH are basically, first round, second round starter picks. So if J.K. Dobbins succeeds to the second half of the season, and we know that, or we get some insight into like where Ingram is going like next year, and he's going to become that workforce, I could easily see him becoming the top, first round starter pick. In terms of who he goes ahead of, Cook and Zeke, I'd say that's probably, I think that's probably likely even not even a bold take. Mixon and Chubb. Again, it's like if Kareem Hunt leaves Cleveland, I don't think you're going to take Dobbins ahead of Nick Chubb. But, if Hunt stays or if something happens there, yeah, I could see that. And then Mixon is all about this year, right? If Mixon has another down year, you could totally see him going ahead of Mixon. But if Mixon lives up to the hype that people like me believe that he can do, there's no chance that Dobbins takes him, goes ahead of Mixon next year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at basically the way I look at it is like if all of those running backs hit their ceilings this year, where are you going to be taking them in dynasty startup drafts next year? And it's like I still would probably take Chubb and Mixon over Dobbins, assuming they all played out the year and they all, did their thing expected of what they're supposed to do. So honestly, I don't think we're going to see Dobbins be a first round startup pick next year. He'll probably border on like the 12 to 16 range, assuming things go well and assuming Ingram kind of fades out after this year. But ahead of Chubb, that's the one I probably have the most hesitancy behind because there's a very, very high chance that Kareem Hunt's not there anymore, and giving Chubb the open backfield on any team is going to be a problem for most fantasy teams. So Chubb's probably ahead. Mixon, very dependent. Cook's probably going to fall behind Dobbins after this year, I'd assume. But yeah, I would say I'd give it like a 7.5 or probably an 8 because there's a lot of stipulations there. All right, X Silent Fire. JuJu finishes outside of the top 24 wide receivers again and shows that he's not the real deal. I'll start off and say that's a 9, an 8.8 to 9 in that range. I think that JuJu is absolutely the real deal. You don't do what he did in the NFL for the first 2 seasons at the age of at the non-legal drinking age and not be the real fucking deal. It was the second half of his rookie year. It was the entire year of his sophomore season, and the dude was an absolute stud. With Big Ben back, he just needs a competent quarterback, to be honest with you. He played most of the year injured. He had quarterbacks who played like they were injured even though they weren't injured, and that was the problem for JuJu. Like, you don't produce that prolifically, and he was a dude that was like, it wasn't lucky things, man. He's a baller with the ball in his hands. He's a yak machine. He's a guy who can catch the ball all over the field. He's got that slot position sewn up, so it's easy targets, it's easy receptions, it's easy volume. I see there's no way that he finishes outside the top 24 this year. I could understand if he, kind of borderlines on that like top 15-ish and doesn't hit the ceiling that a lot of people wanted to see him hit like last year. But no, I don't think this is a fluky JuJu.
Yeah, I put this at like a 9 as well, just because, as Nick said, like, you're not that efficient and you can't be that good with the ball in your hands after the catch without being good at football. And the main argument for JuJu Smith-Schuster was, he had a down year because Antonio Brown wasn't there, and Antonio Brown helped him. The guy put up 1,400 yards with Antonio Brown there. If he wasn't good, they wouldn't be giving him 1,400 yards worth of production when you have Antonio Brown on the field with him. So I just think that he's way too talented. And as Nick said, like, at such a young age, what he did in the NFL, his college profile, and the fact that last year he was dealing with, I believe, like a toe and like a core muscle injury, and he had no quarterbacks to play with. And the fact that like Deontay Johnson and James Washington stepped up, whereas JuJu just kind of had like a roller coaster year throughout the entire season, is what made him drop from basically a top 2 dynasty wide receiver to around number 10. I just think even to fall to wide receiver 24, if he has another down season, I think that's way too far of a fall for that to like realistically happen.
Yeah, one more thing I want to throw in there too, and a lot of the people made points going into last year that, without Antonio Brown there, JuJu's going to have to operate on the outside. He's going to have to take on cornerback ones, and that's why people are like, he couldn't do it last year. That wasn't the case. He actually ran more snaps from the slot. He had a higher percentage of routes from the slot last year than he did 2 years ago with Antonio Brown on the field. So they didn't move him outside. That wasn't the problem. It was the injuries. It was injuries to Big Ben as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with you guys. I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10 just because I think JuJu's already shown that he's a real deal. Someone that has produced that early, that prolifically. The fall off for someone like that is very rare. In fact, I can't even think of one right now in my head that someone that has done that and produced the way that he has and just became a bust to go forward. I think last year there's just a lot of factors at play. And I think that he probably, I think he's going to be a value, man. Like, people that drafted him this year in startups in the 3rd or 4th round are going to cash in because people are going to remember like how good of a receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster really is.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about another wide receiver who is probably being undervalued last year. We're going to combine both of these. Why would you put 2 Tyler Boyd bold predictions back to back?
That's how much I love him. I just put him back to back so I can throw him in easy.
So we're going to combine both of these. We have Silky Smooth and Andrew. We have Tyler Boyd has his 3rd straight 1,000-yard season, hits the 1,300-yard mark with Big Joe Burrow in his bag. And then we got Tyler Boyd gets the 2nd most targets in the league, bringing himself into the low-end wide receiver 1 range this year. I kind of love that second prediction, to be honest with you. While everyone's sleeping on him just as like a floor play, he just balls out and he's like, nah, that's not the case. Like, I'm the real fucking deal here. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Does he go over 1,000 yards again this year? I think he does. My one concern is like, does this offense become a lot more balanced? Like, I don't think he's got that target number in him again, like anywhere near that. And he's not a playmaker enough on the field to rack up a high yardage total without those types of volume numbers. And last year, I believe Cincinnati ran the single most plays while trailing in the NFL, which obviously led to a lot of passing opportunities. They're going to be a better team this year. They're going to spread the ball out a lot this year. Tyler Boyd, I do expect him to be the number one target on the team in terms of overall targets. So I do see him hitting over 1,000 yards. It wouldn't shock me if he went over like 1,200. I think 1,300 is probably pushing it. But I want to see the man succeed. I do want to see him ball out a little bit and show us a ceiling that people are not accounting for. What are you guys thinking here?
Yeah, for third straight 1,000-yard season, I'm going to put that as a 1. I just feel like for the next, 8 years, he's locked into 1,000 yards. 1,300, as you said, I'll put that around, a 5 or 6 because, the Bengals offense isn't great. Joe Burrow might struggle early on. I mean, they are in a division with the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, which are very good defenses, which could be 4 matchups a year that he could struggle in. So I'd put that around a 6 or 7. And then getting the second most targets, I'll put that as a 10 because as long as Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams are in the league, I don't see him ever finishing top 2. And then as a low-end wide receiver 1, I'll put that a 6 or 7 because 2 years ago with AJ Green on the field for about half the season, he was a wide receiver 16. This past year he's a wide receiver 21. But you also have to keep in mind the quarterbacks he was playing with, whether it was Jeff Driscoll, Andy Dalton, or Ryan Finley. Hopefully Joe Burrow is better than all of those guys, but then again, there could be some rookie struggles out of him in that division. So that one's a little bit more bold for me, but I think the 1,000 yards, he's just one of the more safe investments you could make in the 8th round.
Yeah, look, I love Tyler Boyd. I think that 1,000-yard season is an absolute fucking lock. You can lock that shit up. It's definitely going to happen. In terms of the 1,300 and the low-end wide receiver 1 and the second most targets in the league, I think those are all pretty spicy takes because, I'm always shocked that when I look back at the stats and I see Tyler Boyd was 7th in the league in targets, I'm like, what the fuck? When did that happen? But in terms of getting the second most targets in the league, Devontae Adams is literally – I think Devontae Adams is probably going to be the wide receiver 1 this year, if I'm being honest. And then Michael Thomas obviously going to have a bunch of targets as well. So I don't really see that happening. But yeah, I think he's definitely a great investment though. And you guys should definitely be locking him up. I think he's a great value. He always has been a great value. He will continue to be a great value. This is the younger Robert Woods that everyone should be looking for.
Yeah, let's skip over to the next one. We'll come back to it. And while we're on Cincinnati, let's go with Silky Smooth's second bold prediction. Oh, he went back-to-back. This guy's got to be a Cincinnati fan. He went Tyler Boyd first. He also said Joe Burrow breaks the rookie yards and touchdown record. And I believe the rookie yardage record was set by Andrew Luck, 2012, 4,374 yards.
Beast.
Baker Mayfield broke the passing record, right, with 28?
27.
27?
Yep.
Okay, so we have 43-74, and we have 27. That is a hefty stat line for a rookie. Just saying that out loud, I'm going to have to err on the side of a 9. But then again, this dude just smashed every college record that was put in front of him last year, and he's set up to succeed with an improved offensive line. He's set up to succeed with good weapons around him. I just think that's I could see him flirting with it, but probably more realistically 4,100 yards, maybe 22 or 23 passing touchdowns. Anything above that is you're probably playing with yourself.
Yeah, that is pretty bold. I'll put that around an 8 or 9 as well, just because those numbers don't seem too lofty, but then you're halfway through the season and Joe Burrow has 11 touchdowns and 9 picks. You're like, okay, that 27 is actually a lot. So yeah. I could understand this because their defense isn't great. Their run game, they have Joe Mixon, but they can't really run the ball well. They invested in Teddy Higgins, so you expect them to throw a lot, but again, there could be some rookie struggles, especially with a shortened offseason. So I think the 4,300, 4,400-yard mark is extremely lofty for him. I'd almost say the 27 touchdowns is more attainable than the yardage for some reason. I don't know. That's just how my brain works.
I don't think their team is good enough to have a quarterback with 27 passing touchdowns.
That is true as well.
There's only four quarterbacks that did it last, or actually there was 5 or 6, but all of them were good offenses.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this at a 7 only because I want to look back at if anyone's if Dalton has ever done this, and Andy Dalton in his third year hit about 4,300 yards, 33 touchdowns, but about 20 interceptions. So assuming there's no stipulation on the interceptions here, I could see a case where Joe Burrow hits 4K yards, total yards, including rushing, plus 27 touchdowns. But I think it's definitely a pretty spicy take. Just because, especially given the shortened season, I think, something that's going to hit, the quarterback probably more than any other position in terms of trying to pick up the playbook and getting those reps in with the receivers.
Yes, sir. Another rookie. My favorite rookie, DeAndre Shifty Swifty, baby, from Jiggity Puff. I love that name, Jiggity Puff. DeAndre Swift is the offensive rookie of the year. I'm going to go with the 10, maybe a 15, because it's so hard to win the offensive rookie of the year as a running back. Even in years when you should win it, like last year, you don't win it. So DeAndre Swift is not going to win it. In my bold prediction video last week, I said that DeAndre Swift ends up as the number one fantasy scoring running back this year. And I think that people are buying into like the few games that Kerryon Johnson had over the last few years that he was really good in, but they don't realize I think like people are forgetting just how tantalizing of a prospect DeAndre Swift really is. Like he can play all three downs. He's got the size, he's got the speed, really good on third downs. So I imagine that like DeAndre Swift actually becomes a bigger part of his backfield sooner than a guy like J.K. Dobbins, and possibly just as fast as a guy like Jonathan Taylor does with that whole Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack thing. So I think the better bold prediction would probably have been like the offensive rookie of the year sans quarterbacks, but it's almost impossible to top quarterbacks when it comes to this award.
Yeah, I like your bold prediction because you brought up that like DeAndre Swift is the only rookie running back who outclasses the backup in basically every facet of the game, whether it be like Damian Williams and his breakaway runs and Nyheim Hines' pass catching or whatever. DeAndre Swift is just like a souped-up version of Kerryon Johnson. But as far as this bold take goes, I'm going to give it like a 15 as well because I think people are starting to forget that Justin Herbert is a rookie and he's a quarterback, and the chances of him winning the rookie of the year are extremely high. I would have put Justin Herbert take number one or a 1 because I completely agree with it, but that's not the world we live in right now.
Did you see you see my
bold prediction? Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Hell yeah. I'm going to have to give this one a 10 out of 10 as well, just because, look, you really need an Alvin Kamara like season. And that was a historic rookie season, he's the greatest outlier from a running back position for fantasy, for rookie production, that we've seen in a long time. And I just don't see Swift doing that just because, not because I don't think he's talented. If Swift had landed on the Kansas City Chiefs, I would be all on board with this type of take. But the fact of the matter is he landed on the Detroit Lions with Matt Patricia, who still sticks a pencil in his ear, even though he uses a fucking iPad for his play calling. So like that, you just can't couple that with rookie of the year type of projections for me.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Codeine, young Codeine. What's up, player?
Drew Lock. I don't think we can read this.
Drew Lock will finish. Yeah, you read this one. I know it hurts.
Drew Lock will finish as the QB4.
Wait, read the rest of it.
At FP God. So I'm going to pass over to Noah. I want a prediction from you. 1, if you think this is possible. 2, if it is possible, how many ACLs have to be torn ahead of him in order for this to happen?
Any take that makes me wish ill upon like 34 other quarterbacks is not a take I want to believe. So Drew Lock, this is like a 15 again for me. This guy stinks. I don't care if you animal. I hope you watch this episode. Drew Lock fucking stinks. I mean, I told somebody in the comments the other day, there's only one AFC West quarterback that can pretend is good, and that's Justin Herbert. So I'm not out here pretending that Drew Lock is anything.
Drew Lock, this is a lock. This is a 1. We can go into the negatives. I do it. No, this is ridiculous. So who is he beating out? He's not beating out Mahomes. He's not beating out Lamar Jackson. He's not beating out Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Deshaun. This is fucking outrageous. You're trying to piss us off. You're trying to make us yell, and it's working. I'm done. Done.
All right, moving on.
I'm going to literally need some codeine after this. All right. Get schmucked, 70. Gardner Minshew will ball out, be a top 10 quarterback, and next year will remain the starter as they draft O-line in the first round. He will then be – Jesus Christ. Paragraphs. I got to literally scroll my Excel screen to the right. He will then become a top 10 dynasty quarterback as he becomes a Jags franchise quarterback. Holy shit, I've never said quarterback so many times. All right. Let's break this down into 2 things. So we've talked a lot about Gardner Minshew. We're all really big fans of Gardner Minshew 2020. The question becomes, is he an actual real-life NFL quarterback that the Jaguars franchise can build around, or is he just going to put up good statistical numbers this year? You get what you can squeeze out of him in 2020, and then you kind of, whatever. You had fun with him, and he's done with it. So Minshew will ball out, be a top 10 quarterback. I think that's not too bold. I think that's realistic given the rushing ability he showed last year. So and the passing volume that they're going to get again this year. I think that's maybe like a 3 out of 10. Next year will remain the starter as they start to build around him is where it gets probably a little bit bolder, because the reason he's going to get so much passing volume is because his team is going to be fucking terrible. So that means they're probably going to be in the quarterback lottery. I'd imagine teams are starting to learn that they need a quarterback in order to compete in the NFL. I'm having a lot of trouble, as much as I like Minshew this year, getting on board with him as a long-term option.
All right. Yeah, I'm there with you, Nick. As far as the redraft perspective goes, being a top 10 quarterback, I do love his rushing upside. I like the fact that they have no defense anymore and their running game stinks, so they're going to have to throw the ball. I do think that next year, if they are like a top 2 or 3 pick, they're going to invest in either Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. So that's basically a lock if they are that bad. And in the division that they're in, with a few competitive teams and with how bad the Jaguars are, that seems to be somewhat realistic. But if we're talking just like pure dynasty value, him going around like quarterback 25, I'm still fine pushing the button on him there, because even if he does lose his job, I think somebody else will pay up for him, because even the Chicago Bears traded to get Nick Foles this offseason. That guy's an absolute fraud.
Goat.
Yeah, I think I think I'm gonna put this as a 9, just because I think there is a chance. Like, if he does perform well enough, and the Jags are sitting there at like first overall or second, I guess that I kind of just like contradicted myself, because there's no way he could perform well enough and the Jags still be sitting there at the first and second overall.
That's the problem there. It's just like it's a catch-22, and nothing works out well in Gardner's favor. That's the problem.
So that's not going to work. But if he does perform well and they aren't in the top 3 picks, I could see a scenario where that plays out and he becomes like, I'm not going to say a franchise quarterback, but he's going to be given a longer leash to kind of like play out his rookie contract, because having a quarterback at the rookie contract of a 6th-round pick is just a massive advantage from a salary cap perspective.
Yeah. All right. So that rips off all of the Discord bold predictions that we have. If y'all want to get into the Discord, you can do so by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/BDGE. That's also where you'll be able to join startup leagues with other BDGE Discord members. We're going to be ripping off some redraft leagues starting at some point in August. So if you're looking for good redraft leagues, competitive redraft leagues, paid redraft leagues, pay that man, this is where you can get that. Patreon.com/BDGE. We are going to end this video with some bold predictions from us 3. I'll start off, and mine sticks in the AFC West, and it's about Noah's favorite tight end, Justin Herbert.
All right, guys, that's this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. You can finish this, Nick, but I can't stand too much slander of this guy.
No, I was just going to say that I forgot to put the ending to it. It's Justin Herbert converts to a tight end and catches 15 of Tyrod's 40 passing touchdowns this year.
All right, yeah, that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, so Justin Herbert converts to tight end. I think we all agree that's a 5.
No comment. No comment.
Hey, the man. I don't have
that was disrespectful enough for you to not capitalize his last name, and then just to say Tyrod Taylor's going to throw 40 passes this year.
Every fucking device I have is auto lowercase. Like I can't do a capital letter.
I spell running back as one word, so I have no room to talk.
You're so stupid. I can't believe you thought running back was one word.
I've just been living a lie my whole life.
That's incredible. All right. Do you guys actually want to do any bold predictions?
Yeah, I got one. I got one for you. So, look, my bold prediction, I try to keep it a little bit realistic and things that I think can actually happen. Unlike Nick, but here's I'll give you a couple of mine. One is I think that Cam Akers will have a Miles Sanders-esque workhorse type ascension towards the second half of the season, and he will be the first running back drafted in ADP, Dynasty ADP next year out of this class. That's one. 2, I think Ryan Tannehill will finish as a top 8 fantasy quarterback this year.
Love it. I'd actually want to double down on the DeAndre Swift take that we were talking about before. I do think DeAndre Swift's going to go into next year. I don't know if he'll be the top rookie running back. I'd imagine Jonathan Taylor will probably be the first rookie to go off the board. But I would like to say that we're going to start looking at DeAndre Swift. A lot of people are going to start making comparisons from DeAndre Swift to Dalvin Cook and that ascension. And I think that's the way people are going to be looking at Swift next year. I think he's a really good bet to be a first-round rookie pick going into 2021. So I'm gonna double down and say that he does finish this year as the top scoring fantasy rookie running back, and he'll be the highest drafted one going into next year.
I have one bold take. Mine is Hayden Hurst gets traded to the Oakland A's to become a pitcher in return for Billy Beane.
You think that was gonna make me angry? Like you can't get an Atlanta Falcons. You can't get an Atlanta Falcons fan any more angry. Like we signed Todd motherfucking Gurley, all right? Like, I have no heart or soul remaining inside of me.
Oh man.
I'm done.
All right, that's all, boys. Hope you guys enjoyed the bold takes. We'll be back at you with a lot more videos on the Bunkbed channel. Make sure you subscribe. Like Nick said, make sure you join the goddamn Discord. If you're still doing drafts, make sure you buy the fucking guide because it's the best damn thing on the market. Just make sure you get all the value, and that is 100% the best value on the market today. We'll be coming out with ADP soon as well, so make sure you guys be on the lookout for that. You know, July's coming to close. We got a bunch of leagues closing, and I'll be crunching some Excel monkey numbers in the background.